know that 3 of them had relatively hard races at the festival: Eldorado, Allen Fusel Raffles, and of course the Shunter. I think the Shunter probably had the easiest task because they didn't go overly quick in the Paddy Power Chase, whereas the other 2 races, of course, against Shiskin and Chantry House, they went a proper Grade 1 gallop. And it's interesting that I've heard on the grapevine as well that the Shunter's now been acquired by JP McManus. So JP has obviously seen something in the Shunter that perhaps 1 or 2 other owners haven't. So Paul Byrne has now not got the headache of trying to work out which is the best race to run the Shunter in, because he did have this horse entered up in 4 races at this meeting. So that's no longer his problem. And I do think the Shunter's a very talented horse, by the way. I thought he showed a good turn of foot on the running at Cheltenham, like I say, off a relatively slow gallop. He was good when they went fast at Leopardstown in a race that's worked out well over 2 miles. And if you like, he's probably got more to come, or just as much more to come as some of the others in this race. I think he's a fascinating runner, the Shunter. I think Fusel Raffles has probably got the best overall form, courtesy of his run in the Marsh when he got beat by Chantry House. He reminds me a little bit of Top Notch. He's not overly big, but he jumps really well. I think this track will suit him. The fast ground will definitely suit him. And Hitman, I think, has been priced up on probably reputation a little bit. I mean, obviously he's finished second in a Grade 1 behind All Mankind, but he's fallen since, and his victory at Newbury didn't amount to a great deal. So it's a real nasty one, and you can chuck in Eldorado, Allen, and as you said, Umbrigado into the mix as having chances as well. It's not a race I'm going to bet in. I'll wish the Shunter and new connections really well. And obviously Paul watching on from the sidelines, but I've always had a bit of a soft spot for the Shunter, so I'm hopefully can put it up to the good Grade 1 horses here.
Yeah. Okay. Mark, yourself, mate, where are you with this?
Yeah, I'm not really a big fan of any of the horses in the race. I think Fusel Raffles has just about got the best form. I won't be having a bet. For sure, I won't be betting in this race. I like Fusel Raffles just. I think the Chantry House form's quite strong. I think a lot of people are sort of saying because Royale and fell that the form's no good, but he had form with Chantry House earlier in the season as well. I'd just about go with him. I'm not a big fan of Hitman, if I'm honest. I don't think Eldorado Allen will be quite up to it. I think he was ridden to get 2nd place at Cheltenham in the Arkle. I'd just about go with Fusel Raffles, but it's a no bet race, if I'm honest. I don't see any value in the prices. The Shunter's got a great chance because I thought Farkless was going to come and pick him up, and he's just gone away on the running again. So, there's a lot more to come from him, but he's going up from a handicap into Grade 1. So just about Fusel Raffles for me, Gary, but no, not betting wise.
Okay. A little bit against what you 2 guys have said. My bet in the race, I think Fusel Raffles is the likely winner, as Mark will know in particular. He was the horse I put up for the festival, but I don't think he's the likely winner. I thought he ran a really good race. I think the Shunter's got a lot to find here. I think he's got a lot to find. He's effectively won a handicap off, well, effectively 133 because he was off 140 and had a £7 claimer on his back. If he's going to get up to the likes of a 155 Fusel Raffles, I think he's got a hell of a lot to find. And the one that I like and the bet I'm going to have in the race, I actually like the Improving Protectorate. I think there's 2 wins. He's won 2 wins this total for this season. His 2 wins were on better ground. His 2 seconds were on slightly softer ground. And I think he's had wind surgery. I think this will suit him down to the ground, this track, the going. And I'm actually going to match bet him against the Shunter. I think he'll beat him. He's 17-2. I don't know what the actual match bet is, but the Shunter been 3rd favourite. I think he's had I know Andy said they maybe had the easiest running of the ones that have run at Cheltenham, which might be right, but I just think he's got a hell of a lot to find. And I, like I say, I like Protectorate. I think he might struggle. I'm not a Hitman fan. Hitman's never been a horse that I'm a big lover of, but I do think Fusel Raffles will take all the beating. It's a shame we've only got the 7 runners, so there's not really an each way play in it, because that's what I would have done with Protectorate. But I'll probably just match bet him against the Shunter, and that'll be a bet for me in this one. All right, so that's the first race that will kick us off at Aintree, and we'll move swiftly on to the 220, where we have another Grade 1 in our hands, and it's the Juvenile Hurdle, the Dunbar Anniversary 4-year-olds Juvenile Hurdle. Another small field, and I'll kick us off with this one. I think it's pretty much a match bet between the top two in the field. I don't really give any of the outsiders a chance. And of the two, I just think Adagio will be the one for me. I know Monmiral has won all of his races, but I just think Adagio will. I think Monmiral's got it all to prove on the going. I think I heard, I can't remember which one of the pundits pointing out that he had quite a lot of knee action for somebody that might prefer softer ground rather than the better going here. I think Adagio's, he's proven. He's been in some good races. He came second in the Triumph at the festival behind a very good horse in Quilixilos, and he himself beat some good horses in Zanahiyr and Tritonic and a few others. So I think Adagio is the likely winner here, in my opinion. So he would be my selection. Mark?
Well, I'm not having a bet, but I would definitely be Monremal myself. I think he's been kept for this. I think he might have won the Triumph if he'd gone there. I think he would have got softer ground as well, which would have been in his favour. I think they just didn't think they would beat Zanahiyr. Didn't run his race. I'm a big fan. The price is too short, so I won't be betting him at that price. I should have gone in at 94 last week when he was a decent price. Now he's no price at all, but I think he'll win the race. I'll be disappointed if he doesn't, because he's looked a really good horse so far this season, and I'll be with him, but not financially backing him.
Okay, fair enough. So we'll go against each other, 2 from 2, mate. All right, Andy, yourself, mate.
Yeah, it's just an intriguing race to weigh up with regards the betting itself, as Mark's alluded to. You could have got 94 last week about Monmiral. Now obviously the race is cut up and you're looking down the barrel of even money. I just question whether he should be even money in the first place over Adagio. I think you'd be hard pressed to suggest categorically that a horse who's won a Grade 1 and finished second in a very good Triumph should be second favourite against a horse who's not proven at this level. I'm not saying Monmiral can't get there, far from it, because I agree with Mark. He's a very nice horse. I think physically he's the nicer of the two, and I think long term he's going to be the better prospect of the two. I think perhaps next year he might even be novice chasing, because I think that's what they bought him for. But right here and now, I think Adagio is arguably, I don't even think arguably, has got the better body of work. He ties in quite neatly with Monmiral in several respects. They've both beaten Nasserat, the horse of Gary Moore's.
Yeah.
Monmiral, I think he's probably also going to be less happy with the ground as he's likely to ride tomorrow. I think it's going to be quite quick, and Adagio to me strikes me as being a horse who's quite adaptable with regards to ground. He won on good ground at Warwick early on in the season, but either way, he's running the Triumph was a spectacularly good one. I think, like, put it this way, Zanahiyr was in this race. I think Zanahiyr would be favourite, and he was fourth in the Triumph. So I backed Adagio the other day at 5-2. I thought he was a ridiculous price. Mm-hmm. So I think he's now trading at probably the price he should be, around about the 6-4 mark. I'm hoping Adagio can put it up to Monmiral anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, the way things are looking in that, there could be a bit of a reverse forecast on as well, because I don't see much being behind, but you're not going to get much for your money there.
No.
We will move swiftly on to the 250, and again another Grade 1 in our hands here, and it's the Bull Chase, over 3 miles, just about 3 miles, 1 furlong, and for whatever reason we will see Tiger Roll here and not in the Grand National as many would have liked. Mark, I'll come to you first on this one, mate. We've got Waiting Patiently in as Clanders Oboe as your favourite at 11-4, Waiting Patiently as your second favourite around the 7-2 mark. Then you've got Tiger Roll between the 11-2 and 6-1. He's actually drifted slightly today. Condor Castle, Native River, Mr. Fisher, and so on from there. Where are you with this one, Mark? Is it a betting race for you?
Not really. I find it's really tough. You know how much I like Waiting Patiently, but this ground's going to be a little bit firm for him, and it's 3 miles as well. I think I'll place play Tiger Roll, to be honest. I don't think he's going to like these fences. He's liked the national fences where he's jumping them low, but I'm not sure he's going to get away with jumping low on these park fences. And I worry about Tiger Roll in this race, really worry about him. It's hard to go against waiting patiently, but when I was backing him at Christmas, each way he was 33-1. Tomorrow he's 7-2. I can't really be backing him at that price. He's the one I'd pick, but at 7-2, he's not a bet. I'd play Slay, Tiger Roll, but I couldn't see the winner in this, Gary. I couldn't pick between them. I really couldn't, so I wouldn't be backing in it.
Yeah, okay. Mark, yourself, your thoughts on Tiger Roll in this? Do you give him any chance of a sniff, or, you know, it not being over the national fences? Do you think he's going to struggle?
I think he'll struggle. Oh, sorry, yeah.
Sorry, that was for Andy. Sorry, Andy.
Tiger Roll. Yeah, I must admit, he rather caught me unawares at Cheltenham. I'd had him down as a horse that might have they might have retired perhaps before going to the festivals. I got that one particularly wrong, but that was very much Tiger Roll's day, wasn't it? You know, he loves those cross-country fences, and they rode him more aggressively, so he didn't have a chance to sulk. I think that was a point that we should make. But the biggest thing that concerns me is not necessarily the fences. It's the former Denise Foster. She's gone very quiet since Cheltenham. I noticed quite a lot of her Au Profile horses at the Ferry House Festival ran badly. The Bosses Oscar, Battle Over Doyen. Horses, they weren't even running their races. They were tailed off. So that's a bit of a worry for me. I agree with Mike about waiting patiently. He just doesn't win often enough for me to back him win only. I think he's always a kind of horse you want on side, perhaps from an each way perspective. I'm not a huge fan of Clondale Castle. I think the cheek pieces tell you all need to know about him. He's obviously going to sleep in his races. So the one I've backed here is Clondale Castle. He was 9-1 earlier on today. I think he's shunned up a little bit since then, but he's got several things in his favour for me. A, he's fresh. B, he proved that he stays 3 miles and a strongly run 3 miles last time out, winning the Racing Post Trophy, and that race was used by Tom George when Nakarat won this race several years ago. He's also got form here at Aintree. He was a good second to Nutswell in the old roan chase over 2.5 miles on ground that wouldn't have suited him, and that was off a long break. So I think he's probably got a better chance than the market suggests, based on a lot of negativity you could sort of factor in with a lot of the fancied horses. So yeah, he'll do for me at the prices each way. Clondale Castle.
Clondale Castle was one I looked at myself. It's a tough little race. I think there's a bit what you alluded to there, Andy. There's a couple of horses in here that I'm not really a fan of. I'm not a Clondale fan, and I agree with what you said about the cheek pieces. Very bit of a strange one. Waiting patiently. He's a horse I don't mind, actually. I can get away with him above some of the others, but like you say, just doesn't win often enough. I agree with Mark. I think Tiger Roll could be a place lay here. I don't think he's going to be in contention with some of these. Condor Castle, like I said, was one of the two that I ended up, I ended up coming down on 3, but swiftly removed one of them I'll tell you about in a minute, and I think Mark will know who it is. But Native River, I think the ground, obviously, is going to be a major issue for him here. But the 3 I ended up on, Clondale Castle being one. One is a horse that I really like, and anybody who knows me I like, but just hasn't found any form whatsoever this season and since leaving Willie's his real steel. I'd love to see him find a bit of form and bounce him back, but you couldn't bet him certainly on what he's done, particularly this season. But the one I'm going to give a chance to, an each way chance, and I think we can get around 8-1 at the minute, is Mr. Fisher. He was putting it up a little bit to Min and Allaho at the festival before making some really bad jumping mistakes, which effectively ended any chance that he was going to have, and ended up being pulled up. So he's certainly going to have to jump better, but that's probably why you're getting a bit more for your money here at the 8-1. And I think each way, I certainly think he can do a bit of a better round of jumping, and I think he can come into contention in what is a race where, like I say, I think obviously Clondale I do see him being up there, but there's a lot in there that I don't think will be up there either. Like I say, Native River ground not suiting and whatever. I think Mr. Fisher will be right in the mix. He's just got to got to sharpen up on that jumping a bit from the festival, but he'll be my bet in the race at 8-1. Okay, and that is all for. Sorry, no, it's not. We've got the Aintree hurdle at 3:25. Moving strong, which is a grade 1 again. A few grade 1s on the first day, and it's a 2 mile 4. Nice race, this one. I really like the look of this field. Andy, I'll come to you first, mate. How are you looking at this one?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Jason the Militant. He's probably a horse that a lot of UK punters aren't aware of. He's gone very much under the radar in the last sort of 12 months with a lot of the big high-profile Irish horses, such as Honeysuckle, Sharjah, etc., strutting their stuff in Grade 1 races, and Abracadabra can be thrown into that category. But he's definitely been brought along quite nicely by Henry de Brum. And I did notice that he had him in the Champion Hurdle, so the final 5-day withdrawal stage, and then he decided not to go, obviously with a view to coming here. I thought he might have stayed on home soil and gone to either Fairy House or maybe Punchestown, but they're rolling the dice over 2.5 miles. He looks a strong stay to me anyway, every time I've seen him. He goes a good gallop, and he's a very honest, willing horse as well. He's got some good time figures next to his name. He absolutely batted Petit Mouchoir last time out when he won quite comfortably at Fairy House. And obviously with the de Bromhead Rachel Blackmore access very much in the limelight in the last few weeks and months, I think there's going to be a little bit of momentum behind him tomorrow. And again, it's another race where you've got a lot of horses with quite a few convictions, such as, I'm not totally convinced by McFabulous. I think he's been found out in top company this season. He jumped in last time at Fontenoy was horrible. Abracadabra, I'm not overly sure whether he'll get 2.5 miles. I've always been a fan of that horse, but he looks an out-and-out 2-miler to me. And obviously the Denise Foster yard is under a little bit of a cloud. I could certainly give Silver Streak a chance on genuinely better ground. His form on ground no worse than good to softies. I think he's never been out the first 4 in his life. So he'd be one an interest of the big price. But yeah, Jason the Militant for me. I think he's the one with the most untapped potential coming into this race.
Yeah, very good. Okay. Mark, yourself, mate, are you at the top end of the betting, or have you found anything at a price yet?
No, nothing at a price, Gary. I quite like Brewing Up a Storm. I thought he was a really good hurdler the season when he came in and was fourth to City Dancer in the Ballymore. Then that year over fences was desperate, really, and it ended up with him on the floor in the Arkle. But he didn't run any sort of race. And I think they tried him this season once. Now they've gone back over hurdles, and he's been really good in his first 2 runs over hurdles. He won the handicap, but he was obviously a snip, and he's won easily at Taunton, and then he's beaten McFabulous in the Game Spirit as well. I just think that he's run well at Aintree as well in the hurdle race there 2 seasons ago. I think he's a decent each way bet at 6-1, to be honest. I think they never really gave him a chance to see how far he could go over hurdles before they went over fences. Now he's come back because fencing didn't work out for him. I think he's a good horse, and I think at 6-1 I'd be on him each way.
Yeah, you can even get 13-2, and there's 2 bookies offering 7-1, but how much money you can get on with them, I'm not sure. So yeah, myself, 2 horses I came down on, and one was Brewing Up a Storm. I do think, like Andy said, that Jason the Militant is. I'm just want to, we're like Mark, we're trying to find sort of a bit of a price. I think he's a rightful favourite. I think he's definitely going to be the one to beat. A lot of people saying he's been laid out for this. I'm not so sure whether it was that or the owners particularly said that they were just not going to Cheltenham simply because they couldn't go, which is fair enough. But I wouldn't really call that laying it out for a race. But the 2 for me, and Mark probably knows what I'm going to say for one, but it's a bit of a laugh on the second one where I reckon Belvedere can still be in the mix. So yeah, 2 each way bets for me, and it'll be Brewing Up a Storm being one and Belvedere at the other. He had 400 odd days off the track and came back. Yeah, he tired and he didn't get up to beat a horse that's gone on to do not much else since. But I'm just not writing him off. He's 10. He's not. If he was 11 and 12, then fair enough. But coming back from a long time off, I don't think it was as bad a run as as people think. And I think he's currently on 10 or 11 to 1. So I'll be having a double each way on Belvedere. In 23 starts, never been out the places. So, if he does come back to any sort of form, it'll be a long time before you see 10 to 1 again. You can even get 12s with Bet365. So they'll be the 2 each ways for me. But I do think that Jason the Militant is the one to beat. Right, lads, if I could take, I know I never primed you up for this one, but if you're to have a nap sort of thing for day one, what would your best sort of bets be, Andy?
Yeah, but we'll get into my best bets. The very next race, funny enough, and the pair of you will probably laugh at me as a pro punter having a bet in the Fox Hunters. But I'm a big fan of the race. Actually, it's a race that I like watching, but B, I like betting it because I think there's only 2 or 3 that can win it. And I'm
well, my nap's in that race as well, so I hope it's the same one.
Maybe. I'm a big fan of Somatigal in this. Paul Nicholls' charge. He didn't go to Cheltenham. I don't think he's quite suited to the sort of 3-mile rigours of that race. But he did beat the Cheltenham Festival Fox Hunters winner, Porlock Bay, on bad ground at Wincanton this season, over 3-mile one. He didn't handle the real heavy ground at Fontwell next time out. He got beat by a stronger stayer or younger, fresher pair of legs that day. But 3-mile 2 in heavy ground around Fontwell wouldn't be his bag. But he's got loads of back class. And the one thing he has got on his side as well, he's been around these fences twice before. Last year he ran 6 in the Sefton, again on bad ground. He was 3rd in the Sefton back in 2017. So he's had the chance of going around this track twice. He's got Will Biddick on board, which is obviously a good jockey booking. I think that's another important point to make. You need someone who knows his way around here. And more importantly, he's a 12-year-old. And if you look through the history of this race, it always goes to a horse 10 or older. Anything that's like 8, 9, 7, they're just not experienced enough. They haven't got enough know-how, knowledge to handle this track. So that kind of puts me off Billaway, Cat Tiger, and to a smaller degree, Late Night Pass, who of course 2 of those took part in the Fox Hunters at Cheltenham. And that's another bad trial for this race. If you're running the Cheltenham Fox Hunters, it usually means you leave your race behind. I think 3-mile 2 around there, 2-mile 5 around here, chalk and cheese. So I'll be absolutely devastated with the clear round if Somatigal is not banged there, because he's got the technical speed for 2.5 and he stays beyond, which I think is the ingredients for this race. So yeah, very, very strong on him tomorrow. He's my best bet of the day.
Good stuff. Mark, yourself?
My best bet's in the 440, Moon over Germany. I think it's been absolutely laid out to win this race. He won it off, I think it was 136. He's now off 145. Jordan Gainford's taking £7 off. I think that run last time out was just, against any second now and that, but I think that was just to blow away the cobwebs. I think he's been absolutely laid out to win this race again. I think 8 to 1 each race, an absolute steal on Moon over Germany in this 440.
Yeah. Well, I was telling Fibs when I said my bet was in the Fox Hunters, totally get my wires crossed. And just to prove my notes are the same as yours, Mark. My nap of the day is in the 440 and is Moon over Germany. Now, the reason being, I watched this horse win this race in 2019. Our horse, Lady Buttons, was 2nd, and he looked to have an absolute stone in hand, at least. Won this race really well. And, like you say, I think he's just been laid out for it totally. Obviously, has course form winning this race. And like you say, Jordan Gainford, who is proving to be massive value for his £7 that's probably not going to last very long. He's going to be a big play in this race. And Moon over Germany, I couldn't agree more. 8 to 1 is a very good bet in the 440 Red Rum Chase. Okie dokie then. That finishes off for the first day. Thursday, we'll move straight on to Friday. We'll bring up my notes, but we'll come to you first, Mark, on the 220, which is the Novices Hurdle, Grade 1, over 2 miles. Have you got a strong fancy in this one? Or if not a strong fancy, what's your thoughts on it?
The 220?
Yes.
Oh, we're not doing the 145. Okay, right. I'm intrigued to see how Dusart goes, but it's a big ask to come back from whatever setback he had, I know Nicky Henderson probably wouldn't go in here off the, unless he was sure that the horse was ready. But 2-1's pretty skinny for a horse that's only been out once. I know the form's good, beating Soaring Glory, and he'd never even been in a bumper or a point to point. He just come straight and won that. But I think I'd probably go with Any News, who fit Unseated Rider last time out. I think this is a really good horse, and Neil Mulholland. It's been well backed in every run, apart from when the money just came for My Drogo last time. But I think he would have given My Drogo a run at Kelso. I think I would just go with Any News each way in this race. But you obviously got to take on board that Dusart could be anything, and Nicky Henderson probably wouldn't run him if he wasn't ready to go.
Yeah, fair enough, mate. And yourself, Andy, you got a pick here?
Yeah, I'd be the same with Mark. Particularly at the prices. I mean, a lot of this game is about backing the right horse at the right price, isn't it? Sometimes you actually end up not necessarily backing the one you think will win. You end up backing the one you just think's the better value, really. And that sounds a little bit double Dutch, but that's a way a lot of pro punters think. Look, we can all see Dusart. You see him beat Soaring Glory, and you think, God, he's a good horse. But again, 9-4. It's not as if you're having to pay a premium really to side with him after 155-day layoff. So, the obvious alternative at the prices is Any News. I've seen 11-2 for him. That looks a fair bit of each way business as far as I can see. He's obviously a quality horse. The better your ground will suit him. And he was obviously well fancied the other day in that race that My Drogo took at Kelso. Nothing wrong with his form prior to that at Cheltenham. The 4th and the 5th have won since. A horse that beat him's useful, and he was good early on in the season. So he's going to come here fairly fresh, because courtesy of that fall the other day wasn't obviously intended. But by hook or by crook, it meant that he hasn't had a hard race. So yeah, 11-2 for me each way. Any News, I'm singing from the same hymn sheet there.
Okay, very good. It wasn't much of a big fancy for me in this race. Not a strong fancy. I thought For Pleasure did well to come third at the festival. Obviously, a long way. I get it, a long way back behind Appreciate and Ballyadam, but he did beat Soaring Glory and Irascible, were two horses that I quite like. So I think his run there, he'll probably obviously take to the same tactics of getting off out in front. So he's one that kind of wouldn't put too many people off at 7-1 each way. And the other one I like is a Jairo. Won most of his races recently. Obviously has run 2 weeks ago or something like that, I think. So fairly recently he was red hot favourite that day, about 4-7, won quite comfortably. The only time anything's got near him in his wins so far was when he made a bad mistake at Market Raisin back in February. He made a bad mistake at the last, otherwise he would have won that a lot more easily. Probably got a bit to find on 1 or 2 here, but I think he's an improver. I like Kimberley as a trainer as well, so that would probably be my very small bet in this race. Like I say, not much of a strong fancy for me, but a Jairo each way probably best price.
Just be careful with a Jairo with regards going left-handed. My view of him, what I've seen of him so far, he does look to the right. All his best form it's not any great coincidence. All his best form has been going right-handed. The place at Market Raisin, Ludlow, Huntingdon. I think Kim Bailey's deliberately kept him right-handed up to now, and this is the only real Grade 1 he can run at, really. That's at least a flat track, but unfortunately it's left-handed, so just bear that in mind with him.
Bit of a negative. That's all right. Well, okay then. We will move swiftly on to the 250, which is another Grade 1, and it is the Mild Mane Novices Chase. Over 3 miles, just shy of 3 miles, 1 furlong. I'll start us off here. It was another race that I found it a very interesting race. Not the biggest field. We've got 8, so you can get your each way money. But the one I fell on, which will just be a win bet, is Espoir de Rome for me for another Kimberley run. I think obviously Chantry House is up in trip. It does look like a horse that will get the 3 miles, don't get me wrong, and could be a good horse over 3 miles going forward. But just at 6-4, I was willing to take him on here. And looking in behind him, I came down on 2. Fiddler on the Roof was the other one I fell on, but I decided to go for Espoir de Romy. I just think he's an improver. He's a 7-year-old. I think he's looks a bit of a class act in the races I watched back today. Yeah, and he's another one stepping up to 3 mile, and I think he could get it. I know he's won on a couple of heavy goings, but he has won on good to soft as well. I think it was at Huntington earlier on. So yeah, he'll be the progressive one that I fell on here. Mark, come to you, mate.
Well, you know, I've got this problem with the Big Breakaway. I can't sort of give him up yet, but he got a place at Cheltenham at 16-1. So I think he tried to beat Monkfish where Fiddler on the Roof didn't try to beat Monkfish, and that's why Fiddler on the Roof got second against the Big Breakaway. I think the Big Breakaway could win this. Colin Tizard's actually got a good record at Aintree, and I just think if he isn't chasing a pace like Monkfish can set, I think the Big Breakaway just tacked in just off this pace could surprise. 6-1. I'd only back him to win because it could have taken a lot out of him to chase Monkfish. A lot of the horses that Monkfish has beaten haven't run their races in their next races. So, but I'm keen on the Big Breakaway in this at 6-1. I'll bet him to win only though for me.
Yeah. The reason I left Fiddler on the Roof alone was similar to what you said, in that could have took it out of him chasing Monkfish down. And I also think, as much as Monkfish is a good horse, that if one of them was up to too much, you know, that was the race to beat Monkfish, because obviously he jumped terrible all the way around, which was why I left Fiddler on the Roof alone and went elsewhere. But you're right that a lot of people, obviously myself included, not a big Breakaway fan, but he certainly got a place in the race and probably did better than a lot of people would think he was going to. So I get that one. Andy, yourself?
Well, it's certainly the form line that I'm keen or looking to be upheld anyway. Let's say it's Aintree. You know, that Monkfish is just a complete and utter freak as far as I could see. His time figures are just frighteningly good. He can travel at basically 2 mile championship pace and sustain it for 3 miles. He would have, if you set the video off at the first fence going away from the stands and run it onto the winning line, he's actually finished ahead of Put the Kettle on all the champion chasers, Chac and Poursoir, which is astonishing really, considering he's already run a mile up to that point. So.
And jumping not very well. What does that say?
And jumping not very well, exactly. Like he almost went there, ran there blindfolded, didn't he? Yeah, it was an extraordinary effort. And Mark's right, the Big Breakaway was the one who paid for tried to go toe-to-toe with Monkfish. And as a consequence, he got softened up and ended up fading into third. I think you've got to give some kind of credit for Fiddler on the Roof to at least staying in the piece up to a point, and he kept on quite strongly all the way up the hill. I think the angle is to back both the Tizard horses here, in the belief that they'll go a much slower gallop than they did in the RSA, and the rhythm of this race is likely to be a little bit more favourable for them. They can get 7-1 for the Big Breakaway and round about the 6-1 mark for Fiddler on the Roof. So hopefully Colin Tizard could finally have a bit of luck in one of these Grade 1s, because he's had a bit of a wretched run. So it'd be lovely if one of those two won.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, certainly would. Okie dokie. That will do us for that one. We'll move straight on to the 325, which is another Grade 1. And we have the Marsh Chase, obviously registered the Milling Chase, and it's over 2.5 miles. Our favourite here is Fakir Doudari, a horse I'm a big fan of. In behind that, we've got Politolog to round 3-1, Dashel Drasher at 5-1, and Master Tommy Tucker at 5s. Nutswell at 6s, Notebook at 8s, Itchy Feet around 25s, and Duke de Geneva at 33-1. Andy, I'll come to you first, mate. We've got a bit of an each way angle, got plenty of horses in it, and we've got the 8, I think. So is it an each way bet for you or a win bet? Where are you?
I think this is probably the biggest classic conundrum you're likely to face of the entire 3 days, because you have a horse in the shape of Fakir Doudari, which ran in the fastest furlong per furlong time I got on the figures at the festival. That Allaho basically battered Marvin Hagler style a whole raft of top class 2.5 mile chasers. He basically run them into the ground in the first mile of the race. I've never seen a horse destroy so many top class horses. They were literally waving the white flag, going down the far side. You know, the likes of Imperial Aura and Mr. Fisher. They were absolutely punch drunk. At that point, from where they started the race to the top of the hill, if you compare his run, Allaho, where he was compared to Chantry House, there was 35 lengths difference between that race and the actual novice race. It was quite astonishing. It was no wonder that nothing could live with Allaho. And Fakir Dudaris was the only one who offered any kind of resistance. But in doing so, he's had such a hard race that you think, well, is 22 days enough for him to recover? So part of you wants to go with him because you think, well, he's gone with Allaho and he basically represents that Allaho form line. But then you think, well, is he going to be able to do it again because he's had such a hard race? Only time will tell. It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because you only find out when they run again, whether that's the case or not. So it's a bit of a no-bet race for me because I do think at the same time, Fakir Dudaris is a kind of horse I'd only really want to be backing each way because he has a nasty habit of not winning. He should have won last year's Arkle. He didn't. He should have done this. Should have done that. He's had a lot of attempts to get his head in front, and he just keeps finding one too good. So I'm hoping that he runs well for the Allaho form line. But would I back him at 11-4 in a race like this? Probably not.
Yeah, fair one. I'll jump in, Mark, before I do yours. And I'm, as you know, a big fan of Fakir Dudaris, but based on I was going to say based on his Cheltenham form at the horse I'm backing, actually ran at Cheltenham as well. But like I say, I think he did have a very hard race at Cheltenham. The horse that I think is overpriced. I know it was mentioned earlier on by Andy about you tend to try and back the horses that you think are best value in the race. And the one I think's been overlooked a little bit here, and he's a horse that I was never really keen on, his Notebook. He's 8-1 here. I think a flat track is right up his street. If you take his form out, take Cheltenham out of his form, I think he's run at Cheltenham 3 times or whatever, but take Cheltenham out of his form and he's never been out of places in all of his, I think it's 12 runs. He's always been first, second or third. And I think he's a bit overlooked here. I certainly put him in front of the likes of Nutswell and Master Tommy Tucker. So yeah, he'll be, and Politolog, I think he's a better horse than Politolog actually. So he'll be my bet in the race. Each way is Notebook at 8-1. Mark, yourself?
Yeah, firstly, I'm just glad that Allaho did what I thought he was going to do the year before in the Marsh, in the Ryanair this season, because he's cost me a lot of money up to Cheltenham. Gary, I had no selection in this race because I found it just too tough. It's so hard to know what the horses at the Ryanair are going to do. That was a slog. And Fakir Dudaris, if he could run to that form, he'd win. But for me, you can't be sure he's going to replicate that after only 3 weeks, because that was such a hard race. And I really couldn't find a selection because you've got the favourite and you don't know how he's going to run. And I just couldn't find anything to back in the race. But Nats Wells underrated. He's a lot better than people give him credit for. I did have a look at Itchy Feet at a big price, but I'd have to say no bet for me.
No bet. Okay, mate, no problem. And moving on to the last one that we're going to cover on Friday, and that is the 440 Sefton Novices Hurdle, which is a grade 1 over 3 miles. A nice little race again, I think, and I will start us off by another each way play. I'm going to stay away from the top of the market here, and a horse that was put up at an each way for the Albert Bartlett on our preview evening by quite a few people, and I thought he ran quite a decent race in 5th. Is Alaphilippe. 10-1 here. He was before the Albert Bartlett. He was 3 from 4, and his other one, the other race day, he was 2nd. So great form going into the Albert Bartlett. A decent run in there. Never really challenged, never really looked like he was going to win, but a decent race all the same. Again, it's one of them where how much did that actually take out of him? Not having a massive amount of time in between. But I think at 10-1, he can be in the mix here, and he'll be my bet. Mark, I'll come to you second, mate. Your bet in this?
Can you go Can you go to Andy? Because I've messed up. I've messed up my notes. I've got the wrong race here.
No problem. Andy?
Mhm.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've got a very short price favourite, and deservedly so here, guys, with Brave Man's Game. I mean, any Phil could tell you that Grade 1 at Cheltenham was probably pound for pound one of the best of the meeting. Bob Ollinger, Galliard de Mesnil, Brave Man's Game. It was a real great Anglo clash, and Brave Man's Game just come out third best. But I mean, he's gone that he went down on his shield. He's by far and away the nicest long-term prospect in this race. Arguably over the entire 3 days, I think. Probably come next season when he goes over fences, we're going to be talking RSA, then we're going to be talking Gold Cup the year after.
Right.
But he did have a hard race, and look, he's got to prove himself over 3 miles at 13-8. He's no one's bargain. I'd probably look towards Cape Gentleman, winner of an Irish Cesarewitch over 2 miles. He's been running over 2 up to now, generally speaking, and on good ground, he was quite good when he won the Dove Cup, beating Calico. I thought he outstayed that horse that day. So I think the step up to 3 miles will suit him nicely. And also give a favourable mention to Galley Hill as well, who got a poor ride by Nico de Voinville last time at Ascot. He should have won that day. He should have beat Midnight River. But I think probably lack of experience as well on the horse's part. Partly was the undoing of Nico that day. I think he had a chance to ride the race again. He wouldn't have did what he did. He left it to a bit of a sprint finish. But he's a decent prospect in the making. He'll stay the trip, no problem, being a former pointer. But I'll probably have a couple of each-way bets against the field there, Cape Gentleman and Galley Hill.
Cape Gentleman and Galley Hill, good stuff. Mark, are you set?
Yeah, I had actually got Galley Hill because, like the season before, Chantry House was my horse to follow, and this season Galley Hill's been my horse to follow. And of course, he's had setbacks and he's had problems, hasn't gone to the races that people thought he would go for, but he was the horse that I was really keen on coming out the Irish Pointing Fields. He cost a lot of money for Mike Gretsch, and I've been really keen to see how he would do. He didn't look that great over 2 miles at Newbury, but he's up a mile here, and I'm really keen on this horse going forward. I think he'll be a really good chaser next season. Maybe he isn't up to it, but at 10-1, I'm willing to take the risk on him because he was the horse that I was told everyone to follow this season, so I've got to stick with him in this race.
Yeah, okay, mate, no problem. Okay, well, that's where we're going to finish the races on Friday. Just get another sort of best bet off you both for the day. I'll start off with Notebook. It'll be mine each way in the Marsh Chase. I think he's my best bet on Friday. Andy?
A mare of Paul Nichols is in the last is my best bet of the day. Then conditional jockeys race, also called Tomorrow Mystery. She had a wind up since getting beaten at odds on the time before. I think it was at Taunton when she looked a penalty kick. She was very good at Newbury first time up. She goes really well fresh. She won a jumpers bumper the other day, scampering away in a very fast time. She clocked the fastest jumper bumper time I got back in February. That 8 race card at Kempton. I was really impressed with her that day, and I still think mark 137 is very favourable. But the good ground is very much the key to her. She bounces off fast ground. So Tomorrow Mystery, confident choice in it.
Very good,
including race day 2.
Okie dokie. Mark, while you're putting yours up, I'm just going to go on and back that horse of Andy's now.
Do you know what, Gary? For someone that wants to look for value, and I always back Nicky Henderson in the Topham, but I really think this favourite in the Topham is going to win tomorrow on Friday. Live, Love, Laugh. Yeah. I just think this horse has been absolutely laid out for the Topham. It was just caught last time. It'll jump these fences for fun. I think this could be a decent bet, even at 6-1. And it's not normally the type of bet I'd put up, but I fancy this thing in the 405, the Topham.
A bet is a bet, mate, and if it's what you fancy, then that's it. So that's our 3 naps up for Friday, and we will move on to Saturday, where we're going to start off with the 225, which is the Grade 1, the Betway Mersey Novices Hurdle, run over 2.5 miles. Andy, I'll come to you first, mate, on this one.
Well, we're going to get multiple defections, aren't we, here? Let's face it. It's probably not a bad race to bet in now if you've got foresight to dig deep, because I think probably half the field are entered elsewhere. We've only really got 2 main players based on form this season, and that's My Drogo, who ties in with some of the best novices over this side of the water, and Ballyadam, who represents the Supreme Novices form. Of course, now in the care of Henry de Bromhead. It was a creditable run at Cheltenham without being a spectacular one, but I've got a sneaky feeling the stepping up in trip might help Ballyadam. He's just looked to get a little bit outpaced by Appreciate It, but both times he's locked horns against him. 3 times, of course, he's locked horns against him. But there's no appreciating this race, and he'll do for me. Ballyadam.
Ballyadam. Okay. Mark, yourself, mate?
Well, anyone that watches my videos will know that I've been against Ballyadam since that Royal Bond win, but I just don't think he jumps fast well enough for Grade 1 races. He just always makes a mistake at a critical point in the race. I think Mike Drogo going up in distance is going to be a bit of a weapon as well. I've always liked him. I know he wouldn't have beaten Appreciate It, but I seriously think he could have come second in that Supreme, and I would have to go with him. I've been against Ballyadam all season because of this jumping frailty he's got. He just keeps making mistakes at critical points. Maybe 2 miles 4, he won't do it, but over 2 miles, he's constantly made mistakes. He loses a length and a half. In the Supreme, he's lost all chance. He looked like he was going okay. And just as Appreciate It turns the tops on, he makes a mistake at the second last, and he's completely out of the race. I'd have to go with my Drogo.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. There's a couple I fancied in the race. One of them is Ballyadam. I think he up in trip will just help that jumping a little bit in settling. Slightly, I wouldn't say not as quickly run race as your Supreme, but I do think the 2 mile 4 will help him. And actually, earlier in the season, I was probably thinking the other way around. I was thinking it'd probably help Appreciate It more than it would a Ballyadam, but I do think he's the one to beat here. Little bit of a price, assuming Adrimel's going to go here, 16 to 1. I think he'd be a bit of a bet. I know he pulled up in the Albert Bartlett, but he was going quite well. It was quite late on when I think he clattered about 3 out when he was leading, and pulled up fairly sharp, assuming there was nothing wrong with him, because obviously he's back out here. But he was 3 from 3 going into that over 2.5, and it was just up in trip where he'd have actually finished if he hadn't clattered that hurdle. I'm not too sure, but at 16 to 1, I'd be willing to give him another chance. So they're the 2 that I fancy in, not the opener, but our first race that we are covering on Saturday. Moving swiftly on to the 3 o'clock, which is another Grade 1 and the Mughal Novices Chase. Mark, I will come to you first on this. I'm just going to get the betting up here. We've obviously got a very, very hot favourite in Shishkin. 1 to 4, All Mankind at 6s, Tamarok de Mathan at 8s, Eldorado Allen, who won't run, I don't think, is entered in the already on Thursday, Gumball at 25s, and Bigger the rest. Walk in the Park.
Looks like a lap of honour, really, doesn't it? I mean, he won so easily in the arc, but it's hard to see him getting beaten in this. There just seemed like an easy run, really. I hate saying that. I want to look for a horse that's going to try and beat him, but I just can't see anything in there. I mean, the only horse that was going to give him a race this season was Energumene, and he never got to race against him. I just don't think he's going to get a race in this either.
Nothing without the favourite? You wouldn't fancy that market?
No, I don't tend. Well, I can't get on these markets. I don't tend to look at them because I can't bet in them. So yeah, I don't tend to look really. No, I just have to go with Shishkin really.
Yeah. Okay. Andy, anything outside of Shishkin for yourself?
I think you almost have to look towards this if you're going to try and make money out of it beyond Shishkin to try and identify the horse who's going to have less to do with the early pace and pick up the pieces. Like you're almost looking for the Eldorado Allens, the Fiddle of the Roofs that almost get ridden to finish second. And that's not going to happen with All Mankind. He's either going to be one thing or the other, isn't he? They're not interested in finishing second. They'll just go gung-ho from the front, right, let's just press the button. And, Harry Skelton will ride it accordingly. So, given that he'll probably succumb to his own early pace, I'd probably be more interested in looking towards something like Finnambule Savola. I think he'll be ridden off the speed. I was really impressed with the way he won the other day at Ascot. He scampered clear on the running. He looked a real improved performer. And he won't mind the ground either because it was really quick that day at Ascot. So, yeah, I'd be looking perhaps towards him if he was to give me a bet without the favourite.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. Again, it's betting without the favourite for me. Not a big fancy, not a big play in this one for me, but Tamarok Mathen will be my play. I think he'll sit in just behind and has been fairly impressive this season. He is 2 from 3 with his other one being a second. And I just think, like I say, I think he'll be there to pick up the pieces. All Mankind, like you've just said, will go off like the clappers, probably run himself into the ground. And yeah, I mean, the only thing I thought with All Mankind is probably took him by surprise a little bit when Captain Guinness obviously tried to have a match of foot, if you like, up front, and it might just be interesting if nothing does take him on up front. Like if you see I was wondering if you might see a different horse in, not getting some of these horses that like to front run get a bit frustrated when something's up alongside them and then they do run themselves into the ground. He might not run himself into the ground as such. Some of these front runners do like to be up there and can stay up there. It might just be a bit more interesting if he doesn't have a Captain Guinness alongside him. But yeah, without the favourite, Tamarok Mathen for me. Then we move on to what is likely to be one of the best races, you would think, of the festival. And I will just pull my notes up. It is the 3:35, the Grade 1 Liverpool hurdle over 3 miles. Andy, I will come to you first on this one, mate. Good matchup or something from outside?
It's the same old faces, isn't it? The turn up in these races for the last 2 or 3 years. Paisley Park, Liz Nagar, Oscar, and Sir de Burley to a degree. I must admit, I thought the Skeltons probably dropped a clanger, didn't they? They look for easy pickings with Roxana, but she'd already proven herself against Time Hill and Paisley Park at Ascot and ground that probably wouldn't have suited her. It was an odd decision to go up against what I thought was a very good set of mares in the shape of Concertista and the eventual winner. The name escapes me now.
Black Tears.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, Black Tears. Of course, I backed the thing. I can't remember its name. I thought that was a harder race for her to win than it was the Stays. As it turned out, that was the right
big mistake.
That was the right theory. But I do think coming here to Aintree on a flatter track on better ground will suit her. She ran second to Santini back in the day, didn't she, in that novices race over 3 miles. And she's also finished placed in another Aintree race. So I think, given her overall profile of hardly ever finishing at the frame in her life, the way that Harry likes to ride her, she's ridden very much to come through at the end. You could see her arriving there 2 out, travelling well, going out the last. I think I almost think she's a certainty to be in the first 3. I think if you're looking to do some each way multiples throughout the 3 days, you definitely want to stick Roxana in.
Yeah.
Because I think whatever happens, she'll be there or thereabouts. So that's the way I'd probably play.
Yeah. Totally agree with you, Mark. Yourself?
Big time Hill fan, as you know, and I think he'd have won the Stairs, but this track I think will really suit Time Hill, and I think he'll win this. I think he's quite a good bet actually at 5-2 to win this, because the way he won at Newbury when he beat McFabulous in Paisley Park, I think this is the way he'll run the race here. I think that race at Ascot, like I've always said, I thought Johnson hit the front too early. Thought he had Roxana covered and got magged. I think Time Hill will win this. I know he's favourite. I hate tipping favourites, but I think he'll win.
Fair enough, mate. Whatever you think's going to win, can't help it being a favourite. I'm totally with Andy here. I think Roxana is an absolute brilliant bet at 6-1 each way. I cannot see her being out of the mix, and it wouldn't even surprise me if she found the 2 lengths that she got beat by Time Hill and Paisley Park the last time. If on this track that she actually found them couple of lengths and was to pit them late on. I think big mistake going for the mares. I think she'd have been in the mix in the stayers in the end. And she's a horse that I've really come to like. But if you'd have asked me at the beginning of the season, I wasn't a fan of her at all. But I think I've really come to like her, and I think she's a very good bet here at 6-1 each way.
You've been converted,
Gary. I have, yeah. Some horses, I can be a bit stubborn at times with horses like that.
I was going to say, I think just knowing you in the last two or three podcasts, I think it does take a little gentle persuasion for you to come off a horses that you follow over a cliff.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I've been against Shishkin every race he's had, and that hasn't helped me very much at the minute. But I haven't been converted there yet. Okie dokie. We'll move on to the main race. The last one we're going to go into in any sort of detail, and obviously the race, the Grand National, that sort of captures the nation. Everybody gets involved in it more than any other race going. From punting perspective, I don't know about you guys, but I find it probably the hardest race to actually get a hold on. And it's just a couple of stabs at horses I like at bigger prices, basically, for me. Mark, I'll come to you first, mate. You must have a couple of selections at least in this field, have you?
I do, yeah. I like Barrow Saint. I think he's been laid out for this by William Allen. He was obviously laid out last season to win it. I think he's been laid out to win it. I backed him at 16-1, but probably on Saturday, the bet for me will be just a wild outsider, Alpha de Zobo. He was going really well a couple of years ago. I think it might have been 3 years ago in the National, and Rachel Blackmore was on him, I think, and he fell. And he was absolutely tanking. I just think on better ground, he's got a decent chance. Jody McGarvey just won 2 Grade 1s in Ireland. And jockeys like that, sometimes when you've got a jockey who's in form and then, got his confidence up, I just think 66-1 is a bit wrong for him. So I'll have a couple of quid on him. Of the English challengers, Kimberlite Candy's got a great chance, I think. I think Clothcart's too short, really. I know he's won the Lodwick Trophy and the race at Kelso, but I think 4-1's shocking value. I like Kimberlite Candy. I think he'll be absolutely laid out for this. But if I was telling someone to back anything, I'd say, after looking at the Irish National as well, just go Alpha de Zobo, 6 places, 66-1. And if you don't win, you don't win, But it's a bit of a lottery, and you can't be going in on the short price favourites in a lottery, really. I know it's less of a lottery than it was, but yeah, Alpha de Zobo for me.
Good stuff, mate. Okay. Andy, yourself, obviously we've got a red, a shorter price favourite, as we've probably seen for a long time in this in Cloth Cap. Obviously 4-1 doesn't seem like much value in this. You don't strike me as the type of person that'll be jumping on a 4-1 shot in the Grand National at all. I just wanted to ask you about the horses at the top of the weights in this. Bristol de May is a horse and Storyteller that I'm a really big fan of both of them. Can it be done nowadays off top weight, or do you need to be finding something with plenty in hand?
I mean, if you're a bit of a Aintree Grand National boar, then you'd always be looking towards a stat boar. That is, you'd always want to be looking towards 11 stone or under, wouldn't you? I think traditionally that's usually where your starting point it begins. Allied to the fact the ground's, I think, going to be on the quick side come Saturday, despite the watering. I still think it's going to be good to soft, no worse. Looking at the fork, I think Bristol de May's always been renowned for being better with plenty of dig in the ground, such as Haydock. Storyteller won't mind the ground. The only problem with the Storyteller is if you look at his run style, he often gets himself behind. I think he's a bit of a chicken as well, if I'm being honest. I often think all his best runs over fences have come when they've been small fields, when he can see his fences, and the combination of being held up right out the back and, potting over his fences early on. He's not the kind of horse that attacks his fences. I think the front two, the top two have got not necessarily no chance, but I think they've got very, very hard tasks on their hand. I'm always keen on Irish horses in this race. I always think they're quite well in, and Burrow Saint's definitely on the short list. He finished 5th in the Virtual Grand National last year, by the way, so we know he got round last year. He actually comes out second top, doesn't he? Because the first and second don't run this year, Potter's Corner and Walk in the Park. Third, of course, is Eddie second now. So by using that calculation, he wins this year's race, doesn't he?
Yeah.
So that'll be music to the ears of those who fancy Ted Walsh's Any Second Now. But I quite like too. I quite like Manila Times. I think this has got a good chance of going off 6 or 7 to 1. I certainly think it's the value now. Sneaking in right down the bottom there. Rachel Blackburn, of course, Henry de Bromed. You can just see the housewives latching onto Rachel Blackmore. And look, there's no sentimentality involved with me here. I think this horse has got a great chance on form. He's second in the Paddy Power Chase, a similar race to this, 23 runners, big field, no room at Leopardstown. His jumping was slick. He was always up with the pace, which is, again, I think another point to make. Look at the Irish National. Nothing came from behind that. Freewheeling Dylan got a freebie out front on fast ground and nothing got anywhere near it. Clothcap's going to do the same. He's going to go off in front. If he jumps the first 4 or 5 down the beaches, he's going to be in the prime position just to keep galloping and bouncing off the ground. So I think you need to be in around where Clothcap is. So you want something with a bit of tactical speed, and he's got that in abundance. I think off 10-3 for Mark 146. If he gets a trip, he's going to go well. And the other one using that tried and trusted formula of backing horses that run well in previous nationals is Magic of Light, who, of course, was second to the Mighty Tiger Roll 2 years ago. Of course, that's the latest edition of the Grand National. And considering she almost fell at the chair on the first circuit, I don't know how she stood on her feet, let alone finished second. It was an unbelievable effort. She's had her season very much geared to this. She got a little float around Cheltenham the other day and finished strongly up the hill, over 2.5 miles beyond Coolreevy. And Jessica Harrington horses have come into life, haven't they, in the last 4 months? She's had probably 6 or 7 winners under both codes. So with the spring ground in her nostrils, I think she'll run well. So, yeah, I've had a couple of bets against the field. Burrow Saint almost went on the list, but I've ended up back in Magic of Light, Betty's and the left hand at 14.
Very good, very good. Well, a little bit of good news for me because my record in the National is absolutely terrible. But a little bit of good news is that Magic Light is one of my 3. The other 2, Storytellers won.
Well, that's not very good news for us. So back Magic
No,
Light,
no,
you've
it's
got
not.
a
Late,
record of the National, is it?
Yeah, late. But yeah, Storyteller was 1. I left Bristol Domain alone, basically on ground, and I thought the Storyteller could possibly get in the mix here. He's a horse I really like. Take on board the weight issue and everything that's said, but he is one I've had a little dabble on. I think I've got him at 25s. He hasn't come in much from that. I think he's about 22s at the minute. Lord de Menil is another one that I've backed. He's the third one. I've had 3 bets so far, and he's another horse that I like. Again, it's a bit of a gamble. The 4 mile 2, are they going to get there? Are they not going to get there? There's not many horses in here that are tried and tested at that distance. You're taking a bit of a risk. He's probably not that well into handicap wise, which is probably what you're looking for, which is why the likes of Clothcap are where they are. But yeah, again, it's only small players for me, I'm afraid, on the Grand National. A few bets on probably 2 or 3. There might be another one that comes in on the day, probably one that the daughter says, I like them colours, Dad. So that'll be about as close as it gets for me, I'm afraid, in the National. Okie dokie, I'll take a nap off you both for Saturday then. Mark, come to you first.
Right, this is a right outsider I've got here. Great form at the chalk, hasn't run for ages, but he's won a hurdle, grade 1, and a grade 2 bumper here. Layler, 415.
Oh yeah,
he should get 16 to 1. Just if he always runs well fresh as well. I know he's been off the track a long time, but this horse loves Aintree, and he's just coming back from a long layoff. I think he might run a good race. And the other thing to look out for is the specials on the Grand National, because as Andy was saying about the Irish horses, one of my biggest wins ever was putting on the Irish horses to be 1, 2, 3 in the National. And with Clothcap being 4 to 1 favourite, you might get a decent price on a 1, 2, 3 Irish if you shop around with the bookmakers. I wouldn't be able to get the bet off, but it might be a bet worth looking at because the Irish horses dominated Cheltenham and they could quite easily dominate the Grand National as well.
Yeah. Okay, mate, fair enough. So Layla in the 4:15 at 16 to 1 for Mark. Andy?
Yeah, once again, I'm coming from left field a little bit here, but I do pay quite a bit of attention to the bumpers that run up and down the country in the build-up to the festivals. And there's quite a good collection of young talent coming through in that bumper to conclude the Grand National meeting. The likes of Balco Coalstall, Charlie's Lance, and Harry Whittington's Brave Kingdom have all been good on the figures. But the one that's really hit me between the eyes in recent times was one of Ollie Murphy's called Go Dante when it won at Wincanton about a month ago. His time figure and his sectionals that I got him doing in the last back end of that race are unbelievable. I think he's a very, very special talent. If he doesn't win on Saturday, it'll probably be due to the ground because he's by Cave Tara and the ground was soft at Wincanton. It might not necessarily be up his street from the weekend. But I was getting the vibes after reading the comments that they weren't necessarily thinking of Aintree. They said they'd consider it, but the fact that they look like coming here because Aidan Coleman's been jocked up, I think is an indication that they want to roll the dice with this fella. But whatever happens, I'd be surprised if that is not top class at some stage in its career, whether it's over fences or over hurdles. So I'm expecting a good run, whatever happens for Go Dante in that concluding bumper. I think he's a special talent.
Have we seen any prices, Andy? I'm struggling to find
nobody's betting on that yet. Nobody's priced up the bumper. It'll be Friday night. Okay,
then Go Dante for Andy in the bumper. I might stick there in a double because I really fancy the mare in the bumper on the. I know she's hot favourite, but I think she's something special that I leaned over. So I think she's running on. Is it the first tomorrow? I think.
Yeah.
Okay. Mine is one that we've mentioned already. Roxana each way in at the Liverpool hurdle. I think she's a very good bet on Saturday. Okay. Lads, we'll finish that one there. Thanks very much for joining me once again. Much appreciated. Hopefully we've found some winners between us all for the festival. Another good few days racing for us to look forward to as we start to close out the National Hunt season. So, Andy, thanks very much for joining us again, mate. Much appreciated.
Pleasure as always. Consider me for anything else you need. Yeah, no problem. Thanks, buddy.
Certainly will. And Mark, thanks again, mate. We will be back at it soon, no doubt.
Yeah, no problem, Gary. Yeah.
All right. Cheers.